Hello, I watched Vivarium the other day, so I'm going to tell you what I thought about it. There are spoilers ahead.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to Yonder, a wonderful development. It has all you'd need and all you'd want.
Vivarium is a sci-fi thriller from 2019 starring Imogen Poots as Gemma and Jesse Eisenberg as Tom. I didn't seek it out, it just so happened to be pushed to the homepage on my TV, and it's available on Amazon Prime in the UK. The name piqued my interest, so I thought I'd give it a watch. Gemma and Tom are in a relationship. She's a teacher and he's like a landscaper or a gardener. When we're introduced to him, he's tending to a tree on the grounds of the school where Gemma works, and he keeps tools with him like a shovel and a pickaxe, and these will come in handy later. After they finish their workday, they head into what on the surface looks like a somewhat standard housing developer's office, and inside they are greeted by Mr. Creepy Creeperson, actual name Martin, and he's played by Jonathan Arris. He appears to be an estate agent, but he's super weird. His body language, his tone and voice, his delivery, everything is just off about this dude. It's a great performance, and this really hooked me in early. Martin convinces Tom and Gemma to go and check out the new housing development called Yonder. They follow him there in their car, and all the houses, all the gardens, the roads, everything looks identical, and there is a total absence of any sort of other life or activity. In the sky, the clouds look fake. It feels like we have followed Martin into a simulation. He shows them around the house, and there's lots of nice weird touches, like each room will have a picture of the house in it, or in some cases, a picture of the room itself in it, if you get me. Like in the living room, there would be a picture of the living room. And by the foot of the bed, there are clean clothes folded up that match the clothes that Gemma and Tom are wearing. There's no ambient sounds, there's no traffic or planes or other people or animals, it's totally silent. Suddenly, Gemma and Tom can't find Martin, so they try to leave. They get back in their car and start driving around and around and around, and they can't get out. There is no way to get out, and they just keep coming back to the house where Martin left them, which is house number 9. Eventually, a baby in a box turns up outside their house with a note saying, "Raise the baby and be released." Some time passes, and the child looks somewhere between 8 and 10 years old, possibly. I am terrible with assessing the age of people. I literally have no idea, but I think he's meant to be somewhere between 8 and 10 years old. But we do come to learn that only 90 days or so have passed. So we interpret from that the child is growing at an accelerated pace. And the child looks and behaves quite a bit like Martin, who we saw at the beginning, and has a very strange, distorted voice.
Overwhelmed again, mother.
I am not your mother.
Who is my mother?
Gemma and Tom are clearly stressed out and exhausted. They don't like looking after the child, and things are really tense. A bit later, Tom throws a cigarette butt on the ground, and it has a very strange effect on the grass that it hits. So, using those handy tools that I mentioned earlier, he starts digging. And for the rest of the film, he's digging, desperate to get out or just desperate to have something to do. He hears a sound coming from where he is digging as well, which inspires him to dig more, and a lot later on, he finds a dead body in his hole. But I don't think he tells Gemma, and we don't really get much more detail about that. Some weird things happen, and the kid does a few things that make you think he might be an alien, and that this whole thing is like an alien experiment. The kid grows into a fully grown adult. Tom eventually dies from some sort of sickness, and then Gemma is kind of killed by the child, or what is now the adult. He zips her up in a body bag while she is still alive, but she's not really fighting it because she seems to have just given up on life. The man then throws her body into Tom's hole, which is where Tom's body is as well. Then the child, who is now a man, drives back to the office where everything started, and there we find the original Martin dying. He hands his name tag to this child man thing, and he becomes the new Martin. A different couple then walk into the office, and we can assume that the whole cycle is about to start again. So let's explore this a bit more thoroughly. So I do want to say that when I do my reviews, I haven't read anything about the films or TV shows. I just come at these videos with my own viewing experience and my own interpretations, just to let you know. I'm going to start by talking about some of the film's strengths, and I think the performances are really strong. Poots and Eisenberg are playing this really normal, like they just feel like two very normal and believable people. I think they complement each other really well, and I believe their relationship, which I think is extra impressive because there's not heaps of dialogue in this, and we don't actually spend that much time getting to know them as a couple or learning who they are as people. Jonathan Arris, who plays the original Martin, is so good. His mannerisms, his line delivery, all of it. He's a real scene stealer, and he's not in it for very long, but he has a real impact with the short amount of screen time he does have. He could definitely play like an Imperial officer or something. So when Gemma and Tom get to Yonder and realise they're trapped, I do feel like we spend about the right amount of time watching them trying to figure out what's going on and how they can escape. I was a bit worried that we were going to focus on this for too long, that over and over again we would see them trying different things to escape, but they don't really. After the baby arrives, they just sort of get on with it, begrudgingly of course, until Tom decides to start digging the hole. So Tom becomes obsessed with this hole. All day he's digging, and eventually he starts sleeping in it. Gemma remembers that they've been told that if they raise this child, they will be released, so she does assume a bit of a parental role. Gemma is starting to show some maternal feelings towards the child, but these do tend to become quickly undone when the child screams or disobeys her. But the child does really irritate them. He screams at them to wake them up in the morning, he screams at them when he's hungry. And through all of this, I do feel like the film is a bit of an allegory for the more challenging aspects of parenthood. They get stressed out and start arguing with each other, and then the child repeats back to them some of the mean things that they've said to each other and the child. We get a shot of Gemma looking exhausted by a washing machine. Tom is still out there digging his hole, but he seems to be becoming weaker by the day. Eventually, we see that he's covered in bruises and requires Gemma's help to wash himself. I thought he was getting radiation poisoning, and maybe he was, but that wasn't fully explored. And there is a chance he just worked himself to death. So there's a lot of imagery of the stressed out mother feeling trapped inside the home with a child she doesn't like, and the dad outside getting dirty and sweaty, becoming more emotionally detached over time, grinding himself into the ground. He also tries to kill the child at one point. Tom locks him in the car and wants to leave him there until he starves to death, but Gemma can't cope with the screaming, so she eventually swipes the keys from Tom and lets the boy out of the car. So it felt quite symbolic of when parents have conflicting ideas and beliefs when it comes to raising a child. Also, the film opens with a cuckoo chick pushing eggs and hatched chicks out of the nest that it's in. If you don't know, that's a thing that cuckoos do. They don't actually build their own nests. They lay their eggs in other birds' nests, and then those birds end up raising the cuckoos. And using this as the opening scene does reinforce the film's focus on parenthood and some of the ideas we've discussed there. Because of Tom's obsession with the digging, Gemma starts to feel quite distant from him. The deeper and deeper he goes underground, the deeper the metaphorical crevasse of their relationship becomes. So she looks to the child for something to do and for some kind of connection. She starts to spend more time with him. They have a bit of a picnic outside, but he's still super weird, and this stops Gemma from being able to fully commit to the part of mum. So I think that the film is doing something here, like it's trying to illustrate some of the complex and confusing feelings that can come from parenthood, especially if you're finding it difficult. So I quite like all that, especially because ultimately the story doesn't really go anywhere. Our questions about what is this place and who is Martin or the Martins aren't really answered, so you're looking elsewhere for meaning and interpreting your own things from it. We'll move on now to how the film looks and feels. There's lots of really nice choices happening with the lighting throughout, which I really enjoyed. At night time, it's really spooky and dark and often misty, and there are moments late in the day where the fake sky and the fake sun create these really beautiful images of the actors being bathed in like these pink and green hues, and I really enjoyed these elements of it. Music and non-diegetic sound in general is used very, very sparingly, which I think really works in this. It helps with the immersion and with the sinister vibe of the whole thing, and it means that when we do hear some, it has more of an impact. I've been talking about Alien Earth recently, and that has almost constant sound and music, and this is the exact opposite of that, and you can really feel the different effects that this can have on the viewing experience. We get a lot of aerial shots of Yonder, and like I said previously, all the houses, the gardens, the roads, any trees or bushes that are there all look the same as each other, and the film does a great job at depicting how disorientating this is. It almost makes you feel dizzy just looking at it. There's also nothing nice or happy happening in this film at all. It's just kind of grim and uncomfortable all the way through, and I think the way that all of these things come together does create this very eerie, intense film. It's not particularly exciting, but it is weird, and I certainly wasn't bored. Some of the not so strong points, so I found the editing and the framing a bit too overt at times, and sometimes it felt like this was coming from a lack of experience. Like if you heard a particular sound or if a character mentioned a specific thing, we'd then get a close-up of whatever that thing was or whatever made the sound. It was a bit shot reverse shot at times, so I suppose what I'm getting at is that I found the editing and some of the cinematography a bit basic. I think my main takeaway really is that because we didn't get any answers in terms of what the heck is actually going on, it does run the risk of feeling a bit pointless. I think ultimately it completely depends on why you watch films. If you want a coherent, wrapped up story with a satisfying ending, then this isn't for you. This is a bit of a different kind of viewing experience, and ultimately the events of the film are open to interpretation. Who was Martin? Who is the boy? Why did Tom get sick? Was it a simulation or another dimension? Do Tom and Gemma not have any family or friends who would phone the police or someone and send out a search party? We don't know. Does it matter if we don't know? I don't know. Right, I'm going to take a look at the critical reception now, which I haven't seen yet, so I'm going to be looking at that for the very first time now, and I will react to it. Alrighty, so we're looking at IMDb first, and Vivarium at the time of recording has 5.9 on IMDb, okay. Now we're heading over to Rotten Tomatoes, so the critics give it 73% and the audience give it 39%. I do definitely understand that. I can see that this is probably more of a film for the critics. There's a lot of interesting things going on with like technique and the mise en scène and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily the most entertaining, which is why I can see why the audience would give it 39%. I don't know how much of a difference this makes either, but as the film is opening and it's going through all the different production companies who are involved with making it, a lot of like European film companies, and it does feel very European in that sense, in like how it's sort of quiet and ominous and not necessarily all about the action and the spectacle, and it's about something else. So I do understand those scores. I don't think I would give it 39%. I do think that's quite harsh for all the good that it is doing, all the thought and clear direction that has gone into it, and all the meaning that they are trying to create. I do understand how arriving at the end of the film and not having all the answers that you would maybe like could be frustrating, and then that would ruin the viewing experience for you. I think if you're interested in film theory, if you're interested in European film, maybe like Danish film, maybe some like German films as well. And it's quite British as well in some of the ways that the characters have been written, some of the language that they use. Just trying to figure out what I would give it in terms of like a percentage or a score out of 10. Entertainment wise, maybe I'd give it like maybe a 5.5, maybe a 5.5. But as a film, if I were to study it, I'd probably give it something higher, like maybe like a high 6, or maybe like a 6.8 or a 68%. So like I say, I think if you're interested in film theory, or maybe even just interested in watching something a bit different, and seeing Jesse Eisenberg in this sort of film actually was quite interesting. So if you like him as an actor, then you probably might enjoy this, seeing him in like a bit of a different environment and playing a different role. So it's probably not for everyone, but I am glad I watched it. But I probably wouldn't watch it again. So that's everything from me for now, but I'll be back soon with more thoughts on things that I've watched. Bye!